Let me just share screen. So please let me know if you can see the screen. Can you see the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yes.
All righty. So we're going to talk about performance reviews, accelerating your career through performance reviews. And okay, so we're going to see that, right? So we're going to talk about, sorry, this is in my way. All right. Yes. So we're going to talk about performance reviews and accelerating your career through it. But before we jump into the slides and everything, Popo, I wanted us to at least also just share what our own journey has looked like. And I know you're new to me um, at some point, but it's okay if you have to leave out. Just continue this. But before you get to that point where you have to learn, do you want to share if you have like a turning point and or how you've seen, first of all, do you do performance reviews on your job? And if you do, have you really seen any benefit or growth to your career as a result of that? And what is that? Can you just quickly share with us what that is?
Yes. So for the first question, yes, I do performance review at my job. It's a little bit different with where I work because your your duties or so to say, your job description, so to say, or your day-to-day work is tied to the branch goal, is tied to the organization goal. So everything is tied together. So it's kind of a little bit prescriptive, but at the same time, you have the leeway to also do other things as well, like come up with ideas, come up with programs, come up with initiatives, but all in all tied to the goal of the department for that fiscal year, tied to the goal of the organization for that fiscal year. So with that being said, like if I think about how performance review has kind of helped me, I think the first thing that comes to my mind is advancement. So it has helped me in knowing I've gotten to know a lot about myself through performance review, which is very weird. You think you know yourself until you are in that room with your manager and you guys are talking and they're saying all these things. You're like, huh? I am that? You know, like I'm all shocked and surprised. Oh, I am that, I'm this. Oh, wow, that's good to hear. That's good to know. So there are a lot of things I've discovered about myself during a performance review. Um, which maybe because it is me, so I'm not really paying attention to those things, but there are people paying attention to how I show up and how I react and how I behave and stuff like that. So those are even subtle behaviors that are also attached to your performance review. So not just specifically to like my job, but just me holistically as a person. And for specifically to my job, again, it has helped me to kind of know a lot about because I work in a very big organization, it is sometimes very difficult to be able to streamline all those lofty big goals of the organization to individual person. So through performance review, I'm able to see how me as an individual contributor contributes to this general big goal of the organization, which sometimes it gets lost in transit because again it's a very big organization. So it's hard
Mhm.
to you think you're just doing your own part, you're just doing it, and it's hard to see how what you are doing on a daily links to the goal of the organization, right? So it has helped me in that area to kind of see how what I do links to what the organization is looking out to doing for the year. Um, Speaking on still on advancement, through performance review, I've been able to articulate. Usually in the past when I work, I just work. I hardly articulate or write down things that I've done. Or just projects that I've done. I would do them and most likely forget about it until performance review comes and they're like, "Oh, what have you done this?" And I'm like, "I am so sure I did things. I mean, I came to work every day, so I definitely did stuff. I don't have them written down." luckily for me, at those periods, my managers would have them written down. But then I grew as a person, as an employee, into from someone that doesn't write down to someone that now journals the things that I've done. Um, I just have a journal of some of the things that I've done. So it's easier for me to now have it in my review. And because of where I work now, you have to write it down. So because it has to be physically seen. So I have to be diligent in journaling all those things down. and and um the other part of the advancement is what's the word, educational wise. So through performance review, I've been able to find out, or I've been able to see opportunities where I can grow myself um in with the theoretical knowledge. So even if it is as little as taking one or two courses here and there that I feel like might help me do my job better, then organization has been kind enough to sponsor that and help me do that. And so all of this is through performance review. Without it, yeah. So that's kind of what I have. I said a whole lot.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thank you. And quite frankly, I think that's something that is very vital. A lot of people hear the word performance reviews, they cringe, they pull back, because they think that it's this thing that is someone slapping your wrist for all the things you fail to do, or withholding your performance pay if you're in an organization that offers performance pay, or withholding your performance compensation because you fail to do all of these things. But quite frankly, performance reviews, for me, it has been a game changer. As a matter of fact, I know, someone challenged me one time and said, well, not every organization prioritizes performance development. And I said, well, have a conversation with your manager if it's something you want, because it benefits you, and it's beyond just telling you what you did right and what you did wrong. It really can tell you a lot about yourself, like you rightly said, right? And I think even for me, my own journey with it was, I had been so when I first started working, for instance, I mean, I've always had that done, even in my previous places of work. But I think where it really just started to crystallize for me, and I started leaning into the benefits of it, was when I had done my internship when I was doing my master's program with Government of Saskatchewan Energy and Resources Ministry. And you have to set goals on what you're going to achieve in that time of the internship with your mentor and your supervisor, if you have a supervisor different from your mentor. And my mentor and my supervisor had worked with me. I literally had like 3 pages of things I needed me to achieve in 8 months. I kid you not. But in having those things set out, written out, right? I just sort of started working through all of those things. It was a lot. And every other intern who was serving everywhere else who heard about all the things that I was doing, they felt like, come on, really, for how much? Like, this is way beyond our pay grade. But I didn't care. I was just doing them. It was a lot of learning for me. It was a lot of exposure for me. Some of them were really difficult files to work on. But at the end of the 8 months, we realized that some of the things dropped off as priority for the ministry. So obviously, the moment they drop off my list as well. But I was taking notes, like I was tracking my progress on everything by myself. So when the 8 months was over and we were talking, I was talking to my mentor, and then we started going. I brought out, he had even forgotten. He had forgotten. I brought out that list and I said, so yeah, I was able to do this one, and then I did this one, and then we did this one. Oh, and this one dropped off the list because you remember, there was a priority change in government direction. And so this one dropped off. But however, before it dropped off, this and this are what I had done. And let's just say I still have the final notes he sent me. He wrote to my school and he CC'd me in it on my performance. And he said, like, Anita is a 5-star employee. I That was like a page-long review of everything that he had said. But then I remember that one stuck out to me, and he said, Anita is a 5-star employee, right? And so that really just changed my mindset. And believe me, I started seeking performance reviews by myself, because I started to see how it was in performance review. And I think I talked in one post about how I did like a 4x career jump in about 6 months. it was in performance review, to your point about, you get to uncover more about yourself. During the performance review, I was talking to my director at the time, and then he said, um, based on everything that you have, I think we need to get you ready for this role. And I said, that's like 3 or 4 levels jump, right? And he said, well, sometimes temporary opportunities open up in government. If there is one, I think it will be a good one to just sort of do a short term somewhere, use that to grow yourself. And then if it doesn't work for you, good. But if it does, and you discover that you really have what it takes to work at that level, then you can continue off from that level. And true to words, within 6 months, an opportunity opened up. That's how I actually ended up in your organization, right? An opportunity opened up, and I was actually shoulder tapped for that opportunity. So it was like everything just lined up. Why not take it? Why not leverage the opportunity, right? And I did. And lo and behold, I did the 6 month opportunity. I came back to my previous role. I knew without a shadow of doubt that, yeah, the role I was in was great, it was good, but it really wasn't for me, right? And in less than another 6 months, another role came out, and that's how I finally just went from this to this, right? And so, and the reason we uncovered that in the place of performance review. So I really like what you've shared, and I just wanted to, even just hear your perspective on it, before we just sort of jump into it. So, but very quickly, I'll still go through like what we have, because again, like I said, it might be something that really just helps others. But I see, hi Precious, I see that you joined the call. So we're taking some questions earlier. We've answered some questions sent out on resume. Right now, we're just sort of going through performance reviews and what that looks like. Does anybody, do you or Coutinho, do you have any question or any comment or contribution? Like, do you do performance review? Have you seen any benefit to it in your own personal journey before I get into the slides and share on that one?
Okay, back home in Nigeria, performance review is the way it's being done is completely different from this environment.
I
In
bet.
this environment, in this environment, everything is automated and all that. But back home in Nigeria, after 1 year, 6 months, promotion is coming. Your boss will just send you a form to fill, you know, and after he will fill it. After filling it, after you have filled the form, he will review it, put his own comment there, and then you will review his own comment, and then from there it goes to HR. But when I go to this place, the place where I worked, I can say that performance review is being done on daily basis. On daily basis, because the firm will charge the client based on the number of time we spend to produce reports for them. And so you as an employee, whatever you are doing, there's a time management software. We are going to record what you are doing, and then the time it takes you to get it done. And so that's why I said performance review is being done. I mean, based on my own experience here, it's being done on a daily basis. And so that, for me, what he has actually done for me is he taught me how to manage time seriously. He taught me seriously. I have a different approach to time management now compared to the way I used to work back home in Nigeria. Because here, there's a system that is tracking what you have done and the hours and the minute that it took you. I will share an experience with you. There was a particular time when I newly joined the farm, and I'll be waiting for the time to catch up with my boss because I didn't have a car that time. So I will stay behind and I'll be working. So one day, not knowing that they have been looking at what I'm doing, one day one of the managers just called me, Simeon, what happened? And I said, well, I don't want to stay idle while I'm waiting for the time to catch up with my boss. The guy and I said, no, we know that you are sincere, but you are making us to lose money. Because the work you are doing after the office has closed officially, there's no way we're going to bill our client for it. And so that really struck me, and I was like, oh, this is completely a different space compared to where I was coming from. And so for me, performance review here has really taught me about how to be serious about time management. That's my stake for that.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And I really love the fact that you do that, you're doing that comparison, right? And you're right. And in fact, you touched on something very vital. It's a daily affair. And we'll talk about that in a moment here. It really is a daily affair. A daily affair in that sometimes some things like the time tracker thing is automated and it helps you, it just automatically records something that they can measure you against, right?
Yeah,
But in
yeah.
other cases, it might not necessarily always be the case. And that's why it's important that even for ourselves, Coco mentioned something about tracking. So by the end of the year, because it differs from workplace to workplace, at the end
Yes,
of the year,
yes.
you don't want to sit in front of a manager and then you're like, I know I did work. I know I did. And truly you did. I mean, if you didn't, they would have known, right? But you did, but there is no record, right? So we're going to talk about all of that. Just overall, what in itself, is performance review. It really is just a structured evaluation of the work that someone has done over a period of time. And it will typically include feedback from supervisors, peers, and in some cases with clients as well, right? Depending on the kind of work that a person does. I know people who, for instance, are in sales. Part of what would be included in their tracking sheets would be things like what clients are saying about them, their star ratings, things like that. And usually it will be measurable accomplishments. It will be measurable challenges, something that can be verified. But beyond that, it also uncovers developmental needs, how you need to grow, where you need to grow, what skill sets do you need to develop, right? Those are all some of the things that performance review will cover. And so some of the benefits, and again, from your story, from Coco's story, from my experience, we've touched on some of these already. Just overall, it helps you understand how others perceive your work. Because it's one thing for you to think you're doing great, and someone tells you, well, maybe not, you're not. Like, for instance, like that example you shared, Smir, where you talked about the fact that you were trying to just be proactive and, work while you're waiting for your boss, but they're telling you that, yeah, that actually doesn't work, right? It's great work they're doing, it's good work, but at the same time, in the grand scheme of their own objective and goals, it's not working for them. But you wouldn't know that if someone had not given you that feedback, right? I know, just even generally speaking, one of the things that there was one session we had with the Nigerian professionals in Canada, and something one of the speakers in that event had said was that culturally, we don't know how to take or give feedback for a lot of African descent people, right? And sometimes we see feedback as an attack, and it's not, right? So I know that for some workplaces, maybe from wherever many of us are coming from, it may not be in that manner, or it is that sometimes performance reviews have been a tool of weapon somebody has used against you. But that's not what it is here. Here, if you feel that's what's happening, as long as you have your proof, you can challenge the system, you can challenge your manager to say, challenge respectfully, of course, and often within certain parameters in the organization. But they also have to be a documented trail of the successes, because that makes it easy for you to even advocate for your own promotion, for your raises, for new roles, for when you have been cheated, you can say, this is the track record, right? I actually had this happen where in my performance review, in one place I worked, which I should not be mentioning, I was said to have exceeded expectation, but then my performance pay was same as everybody else. And I was like, no, I'm sorry. Like, and they said, no, they just give everybody the same thing. I said, you can't do that. You can't tell me I exceeded expectation and then give me same thing as everybody. I refuse that, right? And I was able to challenge that. They didn't increase it still. They still didn't increase it, but suffice to say, I found them a budget. That's good. What it does is that it helps you identify your strength and also will help you build your personal brand, right? Because when there are specific skill sets that you're working on, before you know it, you start to realize that you're building strength in this because you're also tracking your progress in it. You get clear on growth opportunities that you want, but it's also easier for you to recognize opportunities that are coming your way. So like in my own example where I shared that from performance review, we identified some gaps that I needed to close. And one of the ways we identified I was going to close those gaps was potentially professional development, not through training, but learning on the job. And so if an opportunity for that kind of position comes up, am I going to learn on the job, right? And that opportunity came. And luckily I was shoulder tapped, so it doesn't even get any more easier than someone telling you, this is yours if you want it. So it made it easier, and I just stepped into it, and I really saw myself grow. And then COVID helped, because COVID struck at 3 weeks into that position. And then I found myself managing an entire program for the entire government with little to no training and doing it all from home in a way that I'd never been done before. But it was good because it was good growth, right? And then it helps you receive recognition for the achievements that you've had. It also helps you create a development plan. So this, in some workplaces, they are called individual development plan, and in other places, they are called career development plan. So whatever it is, I strongly always encourage that even if you're in an organization that doesn't do this, still have the conversation with your manager to say, I would like this. And if the manager still is not willing to invest, then keep one for yourself. Challenge yourself. Talk to a mentor, a career coach, a friend, a peer, anybody that is willing to sort of add that layer of accountability to it for you, because you have to be accountable to someone about it, and develop that plan for yourself so that you can track your own progress and growth. And then it also helps with visibility in leadership. You know, when you're constantly like a 5-star employee, before you know, people start to notice. People start to talk about you. People start to whisper about your name in the hallways. And, you know, that's how some people just get picked, right? And then it also helps you align yourself with organizational goals and get promoted faster. People often talk about visibility in workplaces. You have to be visible. Part of that visibility really is just that you're consistently proving and showing up in a way that is documented. Anybody can pick up your file and they'll see that you've shown growth over time. And that just really gives you visibility. And if that is happening, then it means that you're aligning yourself with organizational goals. I know one of the places where I worked in government, one of the tasks that we had been given from the Saskatchewan Growth Plan was to bring in $2 billion investment into the province. My work is directly tied to that. I don't go and talk to the people that bring in the businesses, but I do the research for the people that go and have that conversation. I have to do the research to make sure that I'm building high quality company lineup for them to go and talk to. People, companies in other countries whose businesses align with what we're doing in Saskatchewan. And so for every time they come back, I actually go to them and I would sit down and have conversations with them and say, give me feedback. Did you like the list of companies I pulled for you? What did you like about them? What didn't you like? Did you see that it actually benefited what we wanted? And then I found out that in my 6 months that I spent there, some of the people that I had built a list of companies and people to talk to, and I did the calculation in that 6 months, within the first year, because I still kept in touch even after I left there, they were able to bring in from the list that I curated and the people that actually came and put money down in the province. I calculated that there was at least about $350 million investments that directly came from that. I laid my own claim. I supported that work. And I put it down. It was in my plan that my work, my research was so good, so stellar, that it actually was the right people they needed to talk to. Because if I'm giving them crappy people to talk to, they're not going to bring in $350 million into the province, right? And so I can put that, and in my resume too, I can put that on my resume next time and say that I supported such work. And I have metrics to prove the outcomes. And so those are some of the ways. And you see that it also aligns with the overall, not just the ministry's goal, but the government's goal in total, right? So those are some of the benefits of performance reviews. But you won't know if you're not doing that. And it was even in that place of the review that, you know, okay, Anita, you seem to always have this excellent results with the clients that you're pulling. Everyone is talking about how they like your lists. And everybody started coming to wanting to be paired up with me to be their research analyst for that purpose. Obviously, I can't do all of it, right? So the question then became, what can you do to help others figure out what you're doing? How do you want to help others figure out what you're doing that makes it so excellent? And then I started teaching my colleagues my strategy. So you see now that it's all of a sudden giving me even more visibility because all the leaders who are going on the streets now know that you want something, you want an excellent list that would, check off most of your boxes, and Anita knows how to seem to do that, right? So that's some of the ways that this thing starts to help, because when they're seeing you with the results, you're measuring, you're tracking. If they fail, you track. People will notice. Okay, so people talk about visibility in organizations, but it's not just visibility because you're just jumping from place to place and just chatting around with people. It goes way beyond that. So some of the common challenges people tend to have with performance reviews is, perception of it, but also lack of preparation. And then biased or vague feedback. Sometimes it doesn't help if the feedback is vague or it's biased. And I know that for some people who might be having challenges with managers or supervisors who don't like them or are biased, it can be a challenge. But when that happens, I would often recommend that just sometimes still have an additional voice or someone you can trust in the organization as a leader, and just also have that conversation with them. You just might not get it in that official supervisor to supervisee type direct relationship, but at least you have another voice who gives you a clear feedback on your progress. And then if it's a one-way conversation where it's just the manager just telling the person everything, again, it can be a challenge. Or if it's just you just telling your manager everything and they're not fact-checking or verifying or even challenging your growth, it can also be an issue, right? And then finally, even just with, missing follow-up on your development plans. I often recommend that when it's done with your manager, don't just wait till the end of the year. At the beginning of the year, when you set the plan together, you review the previous year, you set the plan together, talk to the manager and set maybe touch points. If you want to do monthly touch points, quarterly touch points, fine. But even in your daily work, make sure that as anything interesting, an outcome, an achievement, you document for yourself as well. And then when you now meet with them, you're prepared. You're going to say, okay, so last time, here's where we were. This is what we talked about. Here are some things that we went away as action plans for me to do. So this time, this is how far I have come on it, and this is what I'm expecting to see or hear for the next couple while. But that way, you're prepared, and there will always be those touch points, and you can track progress to go along. So to prepare, keep a success folder. I used to keep a career success journal, and I will just write every week. I used to do mine just every week for myself. I'll set a time. I'll reflect on the week, what I have done. Sometimes if I feel like, oh, this is great, this happened. Even something like feedback, someone just comes, maybe you do a presentation, someone comes to you, walks up to you after the presentation and says, oh, great job, Kofo, that was really good. I liked how you did X, Y, and Z, and how you just tied it up together with A, B, and C. I will just quickly note that. And then when I'm doing my review for myself at the end of the week, I'll journal it, and then I'll say, okay, I did this. Here's the challenge I had with it, or here's how I was able to push through the challenge, like a reflective journal of my success. And then the ones that I need to put on my official plan, I'll put those on my official plan. And when I'm talking to my manager and I go for my reviews quarterly, I'll then talk about some of those things, right? To say, okay, here are some challenges that came. Here's how I was able to push through them. And then here's where I am on the skills that we wanted to see me develop. Here's what I feel is getting in the way, or if at all, right? And then that really just helps because you're tracking, you have a folder, you can retrieve it. You can also just revisit your job description and goals before you go into a performance review and see what were the goals that were set for me to do and where am I on it, right? And that's where keeping the success folder and tracking your achievements can help, because it then tells you where you are relative to the goals that were set. And then you prepare your own self-assessments if need be, all right? Sometimes assess yourself. And then you can also take that to the performance review section and say, here's how I think I am doing. What is your feedback, or how would you rate me based on this assessment that I have prepared, right? And then identify your goals beforehand. Know what you want to do. I know for me, one of the things that my manager at the time, who also ended up being a mentor for me, one of the things he used to challenge me to do is don't just think about the next job you would like to go to. Think about the job after that. How do you want this job to set you up for the next two jobs, like if at all, or the next two levels, or the next two positions? That's what he would tell me. And so what skill sets would you need? What would you need to know? Would you need to be in any association, group? Would you need to talk to certain people? And so knowing all of that, it really just helped me get prepared before I go in. So when you're having the conversation, lead with your accomplishments. So here's some of the things that I've been able to do in this time or since we last met. Ask for specific feedback, right? I'll be open to hearing your thoughts on this and this and this, or here's where I had challenges. What do you think I could have done differently next time? Discuss future goals and skill development. Here are some plans that I have, or here's a position I've been interested in. I'm hoping to maybe see myself in 6 months from now, 1 year from now. What skill set do you think I might need to help me achieve that? Here are some skill sets that I think I need. What are your thoughts on it? I'll be open to your feedback. Express your interest in growth opportunities. When I worked at Farm Credit Canada, I love that they did this. They actually make you as part of your plan. Pick 3 places, 3 potential roles you'd like to see yourself in the next 5 years or the next 3 years, which I liked. And it was weird because at some point it was my manager's job. But, you know, because it was part of the culture of the organization, she didn't have a problem with it because she too obviously had her eyes set on her manager's job. And her manager had her eyes set on her manager's job. So we all had our eyes set somewhere, right? And then ask, what would it take for me to be promoted in the next, say, 12 months or 6 months or whatever number of months? And then you know that that's a gap, then you go and work on it. But drive the conversation as much as possible because it is your career development and advancement that we're talking about in this, right? And then turn the feedback into action. Know the plan, seek training or mentorship if need be. Apply the feedback, schedule regular checking. So things I've said before, and then set SMART goals. They have to be specific, they have to be measurable, achievable, relevant especially to your department, to your organization, and it has to be time bound. So those are some of the things that you can do to make sure that you're turning the feedback into action. Now, using it as a leverage, you want to make sure that you're also tying it into your career conversations. How does this set you up? You want to make sure that you're able to talk about promotion, salary negotiations. So people who maybe didn't negotiate salary before they said yes to the job, performance review is actually another opportunity to do that. So remember how I said I was told that I exceeded expectation, but they were not giving me what I needed for my performance pay. I actually also used it to negotiate my salary and my job title. So I was like, you know what? Okay, fine. If you're not going to give me my salary, performance pay, that's fine. If you're not going to give me at the highest level, fine, good. But, I've done my research and comparably, here's what people at my level in other places are earning. 1, and then 2, my job title, as you can see from my review, these are some things I've done. My job title, I feel, does not effectively cover that. Can we at least have a conversation on changing my job title? I got the job title, didn't get the salary, and didn't get the performance pay. But that's not why I left. That opportunity just came up. And then, of course, document your progress for internal applications, especially if you're in a place where they will consider internal applicants first. It helps you to leverage that appropriately. So this is where we end for today. Before you can leave, please. I know you need to leave, all right? But this is where we end. Don't underestimate the value of reviews, quite frankly, don't. And then be strategic, not passive. Plan ahead. Plan ahead. For some organizations, this is March. End of this month, they'll if they haven't already, they'll likely be talking about performance plans review, and then eventually talk about setting new goals for the new year. So prepare. Be prepared because it's powerful. That means you're ahead of the game. And then use the feedback as fuel for growth. Like I said, it's not a slap on the wrist. It's not. When we have the right mindset with what performance review is supposed to do for us, then we know how to leverage it and leverage it right. And don't be shy to speak up about your career aspirations, as long as you're not in a toxic workplace. People typically expect that you'll talk about career growth and career aspirations. So understand your workplace and read the room. If it's a workplace that allows the conversations to happen, like I shared with FCC, at least at the time when I was there, they would even talk to you about what are your plans? Where do you want to go? The organization is huge enough that they encourage people, though rather you're moving within the organization than you're, popping out anytime. They would rather that. And so that really just gave me for someone like me, it's really the full I needed to make sure that I'm in a place where I can leverage and talk about my career aspirations and leverage my performance review sessions for those. So overall, that would be that. If there are any questions very specific to this, we're very open to, I'll take them. We're already at time. We didn't also start early because we're hoping we're just waiting to see if more people are going to come in. We're already at time. So if there are any questions, quite frankly, I'm open to taking them. I think I can spare maybe 5 more minutes for that. And if not, then I guess this is it as well. So does anybody have any questions for those of us that are in the room?
Okay, hello?
Yes, sir, I can hear you.
Yeah, thank you for your delivery, and it was so loaded and eyes opener. But my question now is that if you are working in an environment or working, or you notice from a boss that some of his attitude or actions may likely have negative impact on your performance review, and will it be appropriate for you to let him know or challenge him? Hello?
Sorry, I turned off video instead of unmuting. All right. So no, I hear your question. So if you're worried that your boss's attitude might impact your performance review, will it be
Yeah. Yeah.
okay to let him know? So this is where you want to make sure that on your own you're tracking, right? Now, first of all, when you're tracking and you're having that, and 2 things, it's why it's important to track. It's why it's important to have regular touch points. Because what sometimes then happens for a lot of people is that it is towards the end of the year or when the performance review needs to happen that they suddenly realize that, oh shoot, this person, my relationship hasn't exactly been the greatest with them. Now I'm concerned on what my outcome would be from this review, right?
Okay.
So, but if you're having regular touch points and you're keeping and tracking your progress, when you go in and you're having a conversation with him to say, okay, so here's what we're at, here's what it is. You're also watching for his attitude at that point, or his attitude at that point. If they are discarding all the things you're achieving, then you know that when the end comes, you're going to be in trouble for real, right? But if they are at least putting their issues or animosity or whatever it is aside and acknowledging the work you're doing, then you know that, okay, it will be, even if you get to the end and then they just score you low on their own end, you can then challenge to say, how is it that you've been okay with all of these, that we've been having this touch points and we've talked about these, but you suddenly are no longer okay with it? Do you understand? Because
Okay.
at that point, you can, if you want to, you can then escalate to either his own supervisor or to HR, right? And you'll be within your rights. Okay. So
Okay.
that's why that's specific touch points and documentation, not even just documentation on your end now, but also documentation on his end. So for instance, let's say you finish, you do monthly touch points or quarterly touch points. When you're done, I strongly recommend for somebody like that, when you finish putting in your feedback, his feedback, just send an email with an updated version and say, so hi, Carl, I'm just sending this. Thank you so much for your time today. Really, I always look forward to our time where you're giving your feedback on my performance. It really just helps me understand my strengths, but also where I can leverage opportunities for growth. As we discussed, I appreciate the fact that you acknowledge that I X, 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 X,
Okay.
right? And I'm looking forward to implementing straight away the areas of opportunities for growth, such as ABC. And as we discussed, here are some things that I'm going to do 1, 2, 3. All right. I look forward to the next one where I can talk about what the growth has looked like since our meeting today. Right now, whether or not he responds, at least on your end, you have something that has tied him and looked back into that conversation.
Okay.
Because if he did not say some of those things, then he can reply you and say, that's not what I said, for instance, right? And then it will be on record that he said that's not what he said. But if he doesn't say anything, or he replies to say, yeah, no, that's great, thank you, then you now know that at least he's not disputing that you guys had that conversation. So you just know, because you have to be very careful with someone like that. I get what you're saying, and I've seen that happen, right? So even the one where I was saying the person said I was a 5-star employee, we had issues. That was even exactly the case. We had issues, and the issues were starting to pile up. But thankfully, I was having this touch point where I would take the list, like, I'll say, okay, so I've done this and I've done that. Is there something you want me to fix? Is there a different way you'd like to see this happen? And when the end came, although in between, I also went to him one time and I said, hey, is it okay if we chat? And I just said, I don't know if you noticed this, but I get the sense that I get the sense that I may have done something you may not be pleased with. And I say that because I've observed XYZ in my last couple interactions with you, and it makes me uncomfortable. So this is me coming to say that if there is something I've done, I'm sorry, but I'd really appreciate if we can have a conversation about it. And then he told me, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't realize my actions were having such impact. It had nothing to do with you. This is what's going on. Now, did that attitude stop? It didn't stop. And it was obviously only targeted at me. So much so that people started asking me if there were issues between us. It was that bad. And what do? This is your boss, right? And it's not just your boss, it's the boss of everybody else that you're working with, right? So there was even nobody else to go and report this person to at that point. So, but when the end came, because I was now concerned, I took extra care to make sure that I was doing exactly everything I told you. Documenting in our touch points when we're done, I would say, thank you for your feedback on this and this. I will implement XYZ as we discussed. And I'm grateful that you acknowledge these are that parts that I've done well in. So at the end of everything, I pulled out all of those things. Come and deny that you didn't say I did well. Do you understand? And so when even he himself saw all the different things, and you're even seeing some of the things were deliverables that were also very tangible. Unfortunately for him, I had some deliveries that were tangible. So it was hard to deny anything. Now, at that point, to deny that I did well, it will now be very obvious to everybody that you were just trying to be discriminatory against me. Right? So if you can, track, document, bring the person back in, keep email trails, don't just take their verbal contribution. Put it down. Whatever they said, go back. If they refuse to write their portion of it on your feedback, go back, write in an email, send it to them and say, thank you so much. Does that help?
Yeah, it does. Thank you so much. Yeah.
Absolutely, sir.
Thank you.
Any
I'm
other
very
question,
grateful.
Precious? Do you have any question?
Oh, no, I don't. It was really good because I was even trying to see how me that I run a business, how can this work for me as a business owner and all that. So I do some screenshots. So I'm definitely going to what's the word? Go through it as well too. But yeah,
absolutely. For you as a business owner, because I'm in business too, right? One of the things that I do, I'm just going to stop sharing screen here. One of the things that I do is actually set my goals. Before you go on through that, I've attested to that. We have goals in advance and fulfill. Like we have goals and we're tracking. At least we try to track. When you're your own boss, it's hard to track you. But we're trying to stay accountable. And we have goals we're tracking. And let me even say this with performance reviews is that it might not necessarily always be that you meet every single goal, right? And that's another, maybe misconception sometimes people have. But even when it feels like you don't meet the goals, is to now then ask the question of what got in the way of it and what can we do differently or what can we do better, right? So even like this, our Q&A session came out of our review session on some things we wanted to do last year we didn't get to do. And we're like, you know what? Okay, how could we have done this differently so that we're not losing the essence of what it is? And so we thought, okay, let's try this. So sometimes, especially if you're like a new business, which is what for me I am, right, is that you might even get to try a couple different things. Our first Q&A session, it was very unstructured, and we just felt like, okay, just come ask any questions. But then some of the feedback we got was that it would be nice if we just sort of tied it to a theme. And so we're trying that now, and we might maybe get another feedback and we'll try something else tomorrow, right? Or the next session and see what works until we find something that really just works and helps us advance in the direction that we want to go strategically, right? So even from a business perspective to just telling yourself as the business owner, as the individual, what are some ways that I want to grow? I want to see myself grow. Lately in this year, I've been attending a lot of events. It's part of my own personal challenge of growth for myself, which is that I want to be more out there, right? From a marketing perspective, there are some goals that we've set in place. So from a business perspective, what are some goals you want to have for the business, but also you as the individual and the brain and the visionary behind the business? What are your goals for your own growth as well? Who can help you meet those goals where you're lacking maybe the skill or the knowledge? So, but I think that even just from a business perspective, this still works.
Yeah, I totally agree.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay. Oh, thank you for joining us. We're actually wrapping up now. We are actually done. This is supposed to be an hour session usually. But thank you. But it was recorded live on YouTube, so feel free to go and catch it. Please, if this has been useful to you, kindly share. We'll send out a survey on our email to those that attended. We'll send out a survey. Please just help us answer the survey, and we get feedback. We like feedback. So please respond to us and let us know how we did, what you're looking for. Oh yeah, no, that's okay. That's all right. Thank you. And then we'll go from there. And by the way, these sessions are supposed to, like, if you want to come and go, that's fine. If you want to stay throughout, that's fine. It's a Q&A series. The reason we don't do it as live is like Instagram live or anything like that for now is just because we also just wanted to at least give people the opportunity to interact directly with us, as opposed to just typing through a live chat or anything like that. But who knows, that might change in the future as well. So thank you all for coming. If this is you, please share with others. We do this every month. Our goal is to do these sessions, Q&A career series, every third Saturdays, 10 a.m. Saskatchewan time to 11 a.m. We'll be here, whether or not anybody is. We'll be here a whole hour. We won't leave until at least someone shows up. Just in case they have a question. And then, but if not, we keep them structured and maybe we'll share some insights on a particular topic while we're here as well. So spread the word. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your day. Ladies, if you want to dress for success, having an event tonight, I'll be sticking there so you can still get tickets.